Hello ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to today's webinar, which is brought to you by Shared Services Link in association with Tradeshift. Today we have a product insight, which means that we're going to be taking an in-depth tool of the Tradeshift end-to-end purchase-to-pay tool. So let's have a look at who your presenters are for the next 60 minutes. My name is Susie West, and I'm the founder and CEO at Shared Services Link, and I'm your host for today. So I will be introducing Mark Carlton, who is the Director of Global Solutions Consulting at Tradeshift. I'll also be managing a number of polls that we've got just before I hand over to Mark, and also when it comes to your questions, you'll be posting those questions through to me, and I'll be putting those questions to Mark on your behalf in the last 10 minutes of this webinar. So just to remind you, if you're new to a Shared Services Link webinar, we do take your questions, and it is important that you put your questions to me, and therefore I will then put them to Mark. So just put those in the GoToWebinar panel that's highlighted here, post those through to me. The sooner that you post them through to me, the higher the chances are that they'll be asked to Mark, so do make sure that you get those through to me nice and early, and I'll be putting those to Mark in the last 10 minutes of this webinar. So looking at the agenda, we'll touch on context, and then I'll hand over to Mark, and we'll take a detailed tour of the solution, and then we'll be moving to Q&A. So looking at context, there's been a great deal of maturing of the purchase-to-pay process and accounts payable process and shared services shared services organisation in the last 5 years. And with this, it's meant that not only has the purchase-to-pay process generally become now in a much kind of more sophisticated state, which means that it lends itself particularly nicely for enabling technologies like the one that we're going to be looking at today. But it also means that shared services or shared services leaders and heads have become a lot more clued up on best practices, and they've become a lot more clued up on what their process needs are and what their business needs are and what their functional needs are. So they're a lot kind of better equipped to look at possible solutions and say, yes, this one is really very appropriate for my needs, or this one doesn't quite fit my needs. So you would think as a result of this evolution that there would generally be a lot more clarity when it comes to making decisions on enabling technologies that are most appropriate for various purchase-to-pay or accounts payable organisations. And you would think that this is the case. However, there are a few elements that are thrown into the mix that continue to kind of keep a level of confusion when it comes to making various decisions on enabling technology. And those aspects are that although there are most definitely kind of global leaders within purchase-to-pay enabling technologies, and one of course which we're going to be examining today, and there are global leaders, and I think that many of us are aware of what the big brands are. There continue to be new solutions coming onto the market, so it continues to be an expanding market from an enabling technology perspective. Secondly, the established solutions that have been in place for 5, 10, 15 years and maybe started off as a kind of a single solution product, they're now expanding their offering and now presenting back to you, the buying market, a portfolio of tools really to accommodate the entire end-to-end within purchase-to-pay. And thirdly, marketing messages that are kind of pushed out from a lot of these providers within this space, they can sound very similar, and the reason being because they're all looking to solve a very particular, they're all looking to solve really one problem, which is to make your purchase-to-pay process a lot more streamlined and controlled and automated and cost-effective. So the end result is that there is confusion, and you really do have to get under the bonnet and know what questions to be asking and know what details to be looking out for, and understand the nuances and the finer details that really do separate one solution from another, so that you're very, very clear on what you as a possible buyer of a solution you're actually buying. So you do need to have all those kind of questions, those detailed questions in place. So what is particularly useful about today is if you are in a buying cycle right now, we are lifting the bonnet up and we are getting a good tour of the Tradeshift solution. And this webinar really does intend to draw clarity on what the nuances are regarding the Tradeshift solution. So just before I hand over to Mark, I would like to launch, please, our first poll question, which is coming up on your screen now. So the first poll question is to find out where you are in your purchase to pay automation journey today. So please tick the box most appropriate to your situation. Would you say that you're advanced? Most invoices are managed electronically. You're pretty much in a touchless environment. You are having to touch the odd invoice, but it's more the exception than the rule. Otherwise, you've got a nice electronic flow happening with suppliers using supplier portals, invoices coming in electronically, and a strong workflow in place. Perhaps you're in a kind of a medium state where you do have paper, but you do have a good array of automation tools in place as well. Would you say it's a fair situation where it's actually mostly paper, but you're actively looking to improve, and maybe this is a big year for you where you're looking to make those transformations? Or is it poor, where it's all paper and you have low or no levels of automation? So we've got about 60% of you responding. If you haven't already responded, please do so. And I will be closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, 73% of you responded there, so many thanks for that. We do like to get these results up to pass the 70% mark. So let's just take in these results that we've got in front of us. So just shy of 50% of you qualify yourself at the medium ranking. So you have some paper, but you do have automation tools in place. So if you're attending this today, it sounds like you're on a journey to continuously improve and maybe look to get up to that advanced stage. Just shy of 30% are in the advanced state, so congratulations to you. And 14% of you are in the fair state, and 10% of you today are in the poor state. Okay, good. So let's move on to our second poll coming up on your screen now. This is a multiple response poll, so we do invite you to tick as many of the boxes as appropriate. So in your opinion, what do you need to improve? Which of the following areas do you actually need to improve? Maybe they don't exist today, but you're looking to bring them in, or maybe the technology is already in place, but you really are keen to improve within these areas. So we've got supplier portals, electronic invoicing, workflow, technology that you might use for discounting, so that would largely be around dynamic discounting, but maybe it's other technology that you're using for discounting or other. So we're at 55% of you responding. If you haven't already done so, please do tick the boxes appropriate to you. Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we're great. Also above 70% there, 71% of you sharing your responses with us. So let's have a look here. Just to remind you of the question, what were the areas in which you needed to improve? So the leader here is supplier portals, and this certainly is an area that's come up a lot in the last kind of 2, 3, 4 years. So there's a keenness to find out more about supplier portals, followed at 48% by electronic invoicing, 45% workflow, and 41% of you are keen to improve technology for discounting. So interesting results, and I'm sure that Mark will weave many of these results into his tour. And I'd now like to hand over, please, to Mark Carlton. Over to you, please, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Susie. Susie introduced me. My name is Mark Carlton. I entered the procure-to-pay space about 18 years ago. I started with a small company, about 100 people, that since grew to, I believe, over 5,000 people, but and since acquired by SAP. So now an SAP company. Worked there 8.5 years and have been in the P2P space ever since. So I'm pretty excited about doing this tour today and giving you some insight into Tradeshift. And the questions and the intro, the lead-in that Susie gave was just fantastic. So let me, and I will weave those thoughts in as we go. But Tradeshift is a, let me move here, but at the core of what we do, Tradeshift is a cloud platform. We look to connect buyers and suppliers and really all of their processes all in one place. And we don't really differentiate between a buyer and a supplier. So they all have the same user interface, the same functionality, and it's really our advanced enterprise customers who get some of the advanced functionality. And they are typically buyers, but there's advanced functionality for suppliers as well. So really our vision is to connect every business in the world with one platform. And platform is a key differentiator, and we'll talk about that in the coming couple slides. But at the core of what we do, Tradeshift is a network. So it is, there was a strong interest in supplier portals in the one poll question. And at the core of what we do provide a web interface for suppliers to log on, create a profile, and connect. But really, we do much more than that. We provide connection mechanisms directly to their financial system. So if a supplier is using, SAP or Oracle or QuickBooks or NetSuite or any other system, we have out-of-the-box connectors so that they can quickly receive transactions and post transactions directly to you through that system. So that's really the difference. Where a network, a supplier maintains a profile once, that profile can be used with all the customers they do business with. So really making it easy, providing value for the suppliers. And at the end of the day, the real value is visibility. They can see the status of their transactions, what their customers are doing with it, as well as it gives them options for accelerating payment if that's a desire. So we'll talk about that as we get into it. Now, we're also a platform, and Susie brought up a great point earlier on, in terms of the growing number of solutions, and marketing messages sound similar. So this is where one of the key areas where we're different. Other companies claim to have a platform. Our platform is an open platform. So if you think about it, many software providers out there create everything from the ground up and will claim to have a platform where everything's in the same code line. Ours is quite different. Ours is an open platform where third parties and customers can develop other functionality that they need. So, and we'll give some examples of that in a few minutes, but I wanted to give one big example in the consumer market, one analogy, and that is Apple. Apple has over 1.5 million apps on their platform today, and I guarantee you that if they had made the decision early on to keep that a closed platform where Apple was the only developer of apps, we would have a small fraction of that number of apps out there. So likewise, in the business community, we're opening up our platform for third-party developers really to add value. And we see that's where we're going to give the most value to our customers by not being the bottleneck in terms of development. So that's really what we mean by a platform. And really the combination of network and platform gives us visibility and really the agility to keep doing things. So if you think about it in terms of the Apple analogy, plenty of companies can create an app very quickly, and or individuals really. And same thing with our platform. People can create apps in a matter of weeks days or weeks really to put out on the platform. And I'll go through sort of what we do, but really the core components we have and what we offer in our platform are what we call Tradeshift risk, and that really starts with supplier management. So gathering supplier information, allowing the suppliers to create and enter it once, and then taking that to the next level, enhancing that supplier data with third-party risk factors that we might pull from any number of third parties, as well as CSR type information, and really to give you the insights you need about your supply base. We also have a product around we call Tradeshift Buy, which is our e-procurement product. And that's really the couple key differentiators I'll highlight in the demo, but it's one searchable product database. So we're really maniacally focused on getting content into the system so that you don't have to look out on the internet to find things that maybe you haven't purchased previously. We also, and at the core of all our solutions, is collaboration. And we don't just talk collaboration, we have a great way of facilitating that through the system, and I'll show you that in the demo as well. And lastly, we have the Pay, Tradeshift Pay, which is our e-invoicing solution. So, Susie asked how many, in terms of the P2P automation journey, how many of you are getting electronic invoices? We feel we have a distinct advantage in the P2P market in that we started with invoicing, and invoicing is one of the tougher challenges to overcome. And we've addressed compliance on a global basis and many other concerns. So invoicing is key. We do have a we do have a platform to transfer invoices electronically, but it's really all about the value we provide to suppliers in terms of early payment options, in terms of visibility. And really, we want to stop errors before they happen and prevent exceptions with what we call our business firewall. And what the business firewall does is each of our customers can configure it differently and can even have different rules based on different conditions, be it locations, geographies, business units, whatever. But the business rules give them the option of specifying what data is imperative that they include. So in other words, if you're sending in a non-PO based invoice, we may require that you identify a person to whom that invoice is directed to. That type of thing. We may require that all invoices have a purchase order. We may require certain lines have to reference a contract. It's really up to you what your business rules are, but we can stop that invoice from ever coming to you if you want to build that rule in place for the suppliers. We also give you the capability, I talked about the apps, and this is just one quick slide on our app partners. And app partners can be sort of one of two kinds. They could really have embedded content. Examples there would be someone like a Ecovadis or Risk Methods, and they support our risk product, but it's a subscription to that app that provides that content within the risk module for you. We also have other apps that support other source-to-pay processes, and one great example there is C2FO. C2FO provides a working capital management solution similar to dynamic discounting where buyers and suppliers can specify what they're willing to be paid or take in terms of an early discount. So we do support that, and we have others out here. Citi, we're working with Kuehne+Nagel, and in terms of a payment mechanism, we have others in the sourcing area such as Determine and Synertrade and others out there. But the key there is that these partners of ours are developing apps on our platform that have the same look and feel and perhaps providing the functionality that they've seen throughout history with those particular solutions. So really at the core, it's all about having all your suppliers all in one place and really helping you transition how you do business. So with that, I'm going to jump into a demonstration. And before doing that, I'm just going to set the stage a little bit in terms of what I'm going to do, just so you have a little bit of context. There's a number of different players in the demonstration, and I want that to be clear to you as we go through it. So first we'll break it into two parts, but in the first part we have couple different players. We have Neil, who's an office manager at LTech, and he's going to make a purchase. We have Maya, who's his procurement manager. Maya is going to work with Neil and help facilitate some of the things he's looking to buy. And we also have Zach. Zach is our customer representative. Now, in terms of the steps, we're going to create a four-part requisition, and it's going to be for a break or lounge room in a new hip office that we're setting up in a in the Midtown area. We're going to leverage the sourcing person to go find a supplier for one of the items that Zach or that Neil didn't know what to buy. Zach will be the supplier. Now, they've never done business with Zach before, so they're going to have to go through that supplier registration, sort of a mini version of our risk module, and they're going to have to price the item. The purchasing person then will come back in and approve the item, approve the supplier, approve the item, and approve the requisition, so sort of three parts there. So I just wanted to set that stage that we're going to go through and look at three different people, three different pieces of functionality there. So I'm starting here as Neil, and I'll come back in each time and look at different roles in the system. But Neil is going to go to shopping cart, and what we'll do here with Neil is, let me just make sure I'm in as Neil. And Neil will actually look for those two items, or look for some of the items in his cart. We're going to make a high-end conference room here, and starting out with the cart, we'll create a brand new requisition. And the first thing we're going to look for is a coffee maker. Now, everyone needs caffeine to keep them going through the day. So we'll look and find what we have in terms of espresso makers. And Neil is somewhat of a caffeine aficionado, so he's going to go with the high end, see if he can get this approved by his management. Simply add it to the cart. And that simply, he started to build his cart and can find what he needs. Now, the other thing we might add is some comfortable chairs for the conference room. And let's say Neil wants some beanbag chairs. He can search, and if he doesn't find what he needs, it's going to directly take him into a free-form request. And note with the free-form request that there's some other service types he can go through. He can do a air travel request, a service request for consulting. We'll just stick with the standard goods and come back to that beanbag. And we'll say we want beanbag chairs. Now, one thing to note is every company wants to categorize the items to give them visibility. We have direct ties to UNSPSC coding. The UNSPSC code is part of our item codification. Now, you can use if you do have a coding structure, we can map that to UNSPSC. But really, the value is one company can code it once, and we can leverage that across the network. So as I search in my coding structure, I can see there is a UNSPSC code for beanbags. I'll select that. If not, I could have found another one. And let's say I want 10 of these for the conference room. I can quickly add those to my cart. And you'll see 10 of those are out there, and those are sitting there for the end user to find. Now let's look at two other examples. If I have two other things I want to add, perhaps a television, and let's see if we have any TVs in here. Yeah, I don't have any in my catalog, so it's bringing me to my freeform request. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out to the internet. We're working on a partnership with Amazon, and within Amazon you might find the television you want. And what we've done is we've built what we call Buy Anywhere. Buy Anywhere is our solution to give you compliance for things that you might buy outside of a traditional platform, or traditional tool. So with the Tradeshift platform, we have our little Buy Anywhere switch. We find it's very much like Pinterest, and I can select the requisition I want. I'm noticing I did not give my requisition a name, but it's very much like Pinterest. I can pin the item to my shopping cart and return to my shopping cart and move on with the transaction. So here I see that I have the Samsung TV, I have beanbags. I actually have this other item which I think I added something without having any content, so I'll clean that out. Likewise, I can also go to a flower shop, and the key difference between the flower shop is I might have a pre-built connection with Amazon Business to facilitate payments, but with my flower shop, it might be a one-time purchase that purchasing could be aware of. but I can find the item I want, and I have one sort of saved in the queue here just to make it a little bit quicker for demonstration. But here I see these flowers for $29.97, and I'm going to go ahead and use my little extension to pin it to my cart, and I'll go ahead and see where I stand. So at this point I have the 4 items in my cart. I have the roses, the TV, the beanbag chairs, the coffee maker. I can view my purchase request before submitting it. I have complete visibility to the workflow across the top. If I want to add any comments, now this is where our collaboration panel comes in handy, and collaboration is pervasive through what we do at Tradeshift, but you'll see that I can have a message here to purchasing. And if there's a particular purchasing person who I've worked with before and I want to call out attention to, I can add that person. In this case, I'll quickly add Maya, but I'll ask Maya and say, can you please get green ones? And with that, Maya will get that notification. She's been added to that chat panel, as you can see. It's meant to look very much like instant messenger, perhaps you use on your phone or your tablet today or even on your desktop, but it's meant to look and feel like that rather than be just a comment that other systems may have that you've seen in the past. Now that comment was added specifically to the beanbags. If I want to add a general comment, I can do that, such as please expedite, we want to relax. Very simple to add these comments and again, move on through the system pretty quickly. So on the left, I see one comment tied directly to the beanbags as well as more generic comments. So that's really all the end user has to do, and quite frankly, had I chosen to keep this a simple requisition, I could have had one item, I could have had the espresso maker. You saw how quick that was to do up front. Within a matter of probably a half a minute, I would have found what I wanted, hit submit, and been on my way. But went through a couple more advanced cases, and we'll see those here in the process. So I'm going to submit this requisition. This requisition will then move on to my commodity approver, who happens to be Maya. Maya is in procurement. She's a commodity approver, and she has a couple items, and I don't think I hit the menu bar, but the menu bar is very consistent within Tradeshift. Most users get familiar with this and sort of collapse it. They don't need to use it day in, day out. But key up top is the task area. Maya has a couple tasks that are outstanding, the first of which is the supplier, or the bottom one is the supplier needed. And she jumps to those right away because that usually involves the longest lead time. So in this case, it says I need to find a supplier, and it shows me my requisition over here. I can see that beanbag chairs need a supplier. Now, as a purchasing professional, I can search on beanbags, and I'll see a different result. When I came in as the end user, I did not see the solid nylon beanbags. But when I searched on another item, I did find the espresso maker. Now, one other difference here is I had add to cart before, but in this case, I've never done business with this supplier, Fluffy Puffs, so I'm asked to invite the supplier to join the network, or I have a button to do so. And if I do want these particular beanbags, these are the ones I found, this supplier happens to be on the Tradeshift network, but isn't in your network. So I'm going to go ahead and invite the supplier to do business with me. Maya's company is LTAC. Now the next step in the process is I'll log in as the Fluffy Puffs supplier manager, Zach, and Zach will have a couple tasks. So Zach has 2 tasks. He has the product sharing request and the network request. So the network request says LTAC wants to do business with them, wants to join their network. So what do? I simply proceed. And this is really an embedded or connected process. So I've jumped right from using our Tradeshift procurement product, Tradeshift Buy, jumped right into sort of the risk or supplier management onboarding. And this company, LTAC, was already on the Tradeshift network, already doing business with other companies, and really is invited now to start that registration process. Now you'll note a couple things as we can validate information, such as a federal tax ID. In the U.S., I know we can go against a taxpayer identification number, but as I move off those fields that can validate it. You'll also notice that a number of these fields are already pre-populated, Reason being is that this, Fluffy Puffs is already on the network. We shouldn't make them answer all these questions multiple times. However, you may have them do confirm some things for you, such as their telephone number, such as their business type, just to make sure it hasn't changed. And these can be set up to be updated on a annual or regular basis, really based on what your business rules are. And some of these are going to be standard questions that are part of a Tradeshift profile on the network. Some of these might be questions that you ask that are specific to you. So I'll go ahead and just fill some of these out and proceed. And we'll put in the contact name and email address, who they're working with at LTEC. And that's really all we have to do. Remember, I am the supplier. I'm going to submit this. Now, in a real-world situation, as I submit this form, this would go through workflow and get approved by LTEC. In my demo case, I have it automatically approved just to expedite the demo process. But I'll go back to Neil. Neil, the supplier, has a couple tasks. The other one is a product sharing request. And it says product request, LTEC requests you to share your products. And he'll proceed, and he'll see that he has, let me see here. Neil has the beanbag chair that they had requested to share. All he needs to do, and they may change the price if they want to, but given that they haven't done business with LTEC, they may say, and LTEC really hasn't asked for a discount, we're just going to go ahead and submit this product at the price of $189 to LTEC so LTEC can start purchasing against it. So just a quick refresher where we are is Neil started the process. Maya had to source the beanbags. The supplier did his job. Now we're going to jump back, and Maya in procurement has 3 steps. They have to approve the supplier, approve the item, and approve the requisition. So let's go back to Maya here for a second. Now Maya has back to her tasks, and we completed that supplier needed task. We do have the product request. We'll do the product approval. And at this point, she will get notification, and she can see that there is a solid nylon beanbag chair. We can choose to look at the details of it, and I'll skip over that for now, the description, specification, images, or she can simply just approve it. And in this case, we'll approve it and go back to the next task. The next task is she has a document shared with her. Look at this particular purchase request, and we'll update the purchase request. And in this case, we have the beanbag chairs, and we'll search and find those beanbag chairs. So now that we've approved the supplier, we've approved the beanbags, the item, I can now add these to the cart. Now key here is one of the things we do differently at Tradeshift is we allow you to replace a cart item. So the cart item, you specify which one, and really the key here is that we give you that visibility in terms of what people are requesting so that you might build tags into that in the future so that they, what they're searching on. So in this case, we searched on beanbags. We'd probably find it regardless, but we can see that that is added to the cart, and I can see the cart at any point. I see what's replaced, and I can say, add commentary back to Neil, such as, will these beanbags do? And he will get notification. He can come back and comment on that. In this case, though, I'm going to jump through and sort of move it on to the next step in the process and go ahead and approve this. So again, note the detailed chat panel, and I'll go ahead and approve this, and then it'll move on to the cost center approval step. So let's just see where we are. We did steps 1 through 4. We're moving along quite well. The next step we're going to introduce in our next act, introduce Tina, who is the CFO as LTEC. And this is one of the, we'll see that she'll get insights into the status of the requisition, and she'll make a call based on the insights provided to her, but she'll make the call to reject the requisition. We'll replace the item. Neil will get the notification. Neil will go out and find a newer one. He'll approve the rec and flip the PO into an invoice. And then lastly, we'll look at something unique, and in the flower example, we'll look at creating a one-time credit card purchase. So we're going to start here with step 5. We'll go in as Tina and reject that requisition. So switch roles here real quickly to Tina. Tina has a notification. Really what we do is we're tracking all different types of information within Tradeshift. What we're doing is building what we call insights. So it's analytics, but it's built into the process. And you'll see that in this case, the CFO is required for this purchase request, and I can see what they're pulled in to approve or reject. And in this case, we see that she has this insight card that's built in that says the item needs financial approval for the cappuccino or espresso machine. We have a company limit of $2,076. This particular one is $2,595. So we have an option here. Tina, as a CFO, is quite busy. Tina could log into the requisition or click into the requisition, see all details, or she might simply just reject it and give an answer. And she can do this on the phone. We'll look at an example of mobile in a second, but our platform is built upon responsive web design, which simply means that it works on any platform, a mobile device, an iPad, a smartphone, really any device you want. So she'll go ahead and reject this. And again, from a workflow perspective, this is configurable, but we could have the requisition sent back to the end user, sent back to purchasing. In this case, I have it going back to Neil. And this is where we're going to look at one other quite interesting facet. We've talked about collaboration, and let's look at Neil's rejection. He has a purchase request rejection, and we'll see what it was and why. So real quickly, he sees highlighted in red the line item that was rejected. He sees the why it was rejected, because it's too expensive. And we'll go ahead and reopen this requisition and look at this espresso maker. Now, Neil's going to take advantage of something we've built into our platform. And many of you have probably seen this in consumer sites, but you have chat capability. So from a chat perspective, if the supplier is not logged in, they can get notification and log in. But the chat functionality, and they can set up bots as well. So bots can automatically respond to them. And in fact, that's what I have set up here in this demo environment. And in this case, Neil is going to start collaborating with the supplier. So collaboration isn't just between internal constituents, just not between an end user and the purchasing professional, but also can be with a supplier. And he'll go ahead and said, this one is too expensive, and the supplier can come back and provide other details. What about another one that is cheaper? Sure. Can you suggest one? And at this point, the supplier can come back and give one, and this one happens to fall within the purchasing ranks. Now, what I can do as Neil is I might say, hey, this is good information. This item maybe isn't being purchased a lot, but I may want to add this to my history just so people know where I got this information. I can do so by quickly appending the chat history, and we'll take a look at this in a second. But we'll also go find this particular item, and similar to before, we're going to replace the cart item. So we have full history of what was originally ordered, and this can give visibility to purchasing that maybe it makes sense to take out the $2,500 item if that's above our internal spend thresholds, not even make that available, not waste people's time in the process. So we'll go ahead, and now I have that requisition that's outstanding. We can see different things with the requisition, but nice here in the chat panel and the collaboration panel, which also serves as a history panel, I do see that I replaced that one item with the other, but I also have that full chat history tied to the requisition so that I can see that the supplier actually suggested this one. And perhaps there could be more detail in some cases that says why or other things that you may want to retain. Key is that's part of the record going forward as you need it. So I'm back in, and just quick check, I have to approve the requisition. So I'm going to go forth and actually as the end user, I'll submit it, and Maya will get a task to approve it, and she sees one task outstanding, purchase rec approval, and we'll go ahead and open this particular requisition. You know, if she wants to see the details, she can see it, and okay, why did he change this one? Full collaboration history there right in front of them. And the Maya in purchasing can approve it, and we'll move on to the next step. Now, the next step, I was going to give you a preview of what it looks like from a supplier receiving the invoice. And to do that, I'm going to show you that on my iPad, just to give you a feel for how we can work with other devices. So here is a view of my iPad. I am just emulating this on the screen. You can see that as I flip it different ways, I see different things. But this is my live iPad. I can open up this first LTEC order. This is a purchase order. I'm the supplier. I'm about to fulfill this. And with that, I see that particular purchase order. I can add commentary up top in the chat panel. I see that this one is received. I can quickly accept it with the green button up top. And I can do what's called a PO flip. Now, a PO flip is very common in the procure-to-pay space. A PO flip is really requires a supplier to go to the website, to a web portal, and do that flip. What we find is many of our customers or many of the suppliers on the Tradeshift network leverage many of the free connectors so that they don't have to do a flip, but instead the invoice gets sent directly from their ERP system, from their financial system. You know, could be QuickBooks, could be any other system. We also have uploaders, so if they're using something that resembles Excel, we can leverage that as well. So at any point, the purchase order looks like a purchase order, a paper one, but this is really an electronic record that's out there. So we'll go ahead and create the invoice, and this will really tie out the last process. So as part of the invoice creation, you'll see that the invoice number automatically created. The yellow text up top tells me that we filled in the information from the PO. And you'll see all the details here in the purchase order. We have the 10 nylon bean bags. We also have, let me see, we have a link to the other documents, but I'll go ahead and just send this particular one and be on our way with this particular invoice. So now the supplier has invoiced it, and we flip that PO into an invoice. The last piece I wanted to show you in the demonstration is really a key piece in our mind, and that's really we added, let me go back in as the end user, but Neil will have a task outstanding. And really what we've done is we've built a API for banks to leverage to use one-time credit card payments. And what we mean by that is, it could be a one-time credit card number that then gets shared. And I'm not going to follow this through in full production here, but you will see a payment record here. And what could happen here is purchasing might have determined that this particular flour order is a supplier that I don't want to waste time registering. I mean, we're not going to buy from them all that much, but I do want to provide a payment mechanism. So I'm going to go ahead and pass that credit card information or approve them for a one-time credit card purchase. I would send that information back to this particular end user. I'm logged in as Neil, and Neil could check out. And as part of that checkout process, I've actually retained that credit card site, and I could come here and copy and paste that credit card information that was provided. So really it ties out that one-time purchase. We had one analyst told us that the one-time credit card process has been in play for quite a number of years, but really didn't have a use case. And what Tradeshift did is we introduced a great use case to use that one-time credit card in the P2P process. So we walked through all 9 steps, went through them pretty quickly. I did want to just summarize real quick and some of the benefits I think you saw, that easy to use, easy to find what you need. Really key is with the external purchases is that we give people the flexibility to find and get what they need, but really to stay with it compliant within your organization's policy. So by that you could, we looked at the flowers, we looked at the TV. It could have been bean bags that people could have ordered the TV, and we might have had one that the supplier had access to through the Tradeshift network. They could have leveraged that. We saw insights into spend, insights for the CPO who saw immediately that something was flagged as red and over a spend limit. So we saw mobile processing with the iPad PO flip by the supplier. And really key is a collaboration both with the buyers and suppliers. Lastly, I want to emphasize that this is free for all suppliers. So the value is for the suppliers, but it's there is value in terms of being able to manage content. We saw Fluffy Puffs was already on the network, already had, we saw the one beanbag item, but they had a couple dozen items out there that you can leverage, adding to your procurement process. And really, that's the value we're going to provide to our P2P customers, is that they can find plenty of content out on the network. It's not going to be an empty platform. So with that, I think we're wrapped up with the demonstration piece and open to any questions.
That's great. Many thanks indeed, Mark. So lots of questions have come through. So let's start putting them in your direction. First question for you. How many suppliers do you already have connected to the Tradeshift network?
Yeah, so we have thousands of suppliers. I'd have to get the exact number for them. So each of our customers, we're probably in the half a billion type number to a billion is really the right number, 500,000 to a billion, somewhere in that range. But it's constantly growing. And we've been in business for about 6 or 7 years, so that's really part of the reason for it. But it's really hundreds of thousands in the billions. Really is the right answer.
So hundreds of thousands of suppliers connected, maybe into the millions, you think?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Just focusing on the app that Neil was using at the beginning of the process, he was using an app in order to make a purchase. Would that particular app also highlight to him the most cost-efficient or the most competitive product from a pricing perspective?
Yeah, so we've updated the search, and I don't have the most recent version there, but in the search results, we're going to have a number of different categories, including things in that category they purchased recently, including top purchases by your company, as well as optimal purchases. So we're trying to lead them to the right item. And include things such as the best price and so forth. So the search result will generally come back with with about 6 or 8 different categories of results that the user can then choose from once they do that initial search.
Okay. So, regarding how buyers go about actually inviting suppliers who are not already on the network, who aren't amongst the hundreds of thousands, maybe even kind of million or so suppliers that you've got connected. How would a buyer actually invite suppliers who are not already connected to the network?
Yeah, so the buyer can invite, there's a couple different ways, but I will emphasize supplier onboarding is a key differentiator for us. And one of the companies where I used to work we have a slide that we frequently show that compares our success on onboarding to really 3 different competitors out there, and I'll say that we onboarded about 4x what our competitor did. We did that in about a 7-month period versus our competitor taking 4 years. So really, supplier onboarding is a key differentiator and built into our implementation process. Now, if you want to invite a supplier, we can upload lists of suppliers. We can also invite a single supplier at a time, the way I showed through the demonstration. So if you do have those, and typically what we do when we're starting a new project is we will start with a list most likely from your ERP system, And if a lot of those have been vetted already, we may not go through the normal question and answer process initially, but start onboarding brand new suppliers through the questionnaire process. So it's really adaptive based on the situation, based on which suppliers we're onboarding. But there is a capability, like I showed you, where you can invite a brand new supplier, just like I showed you inviting Fluffy Puffs in the demo, inviting Zach to join.
Okay. So, Mark, there was one supplier where you were thinking this might be a one-off only purchase, so maybe you won't invite them to the network. I mean, maybe this question is answered, but I'll go ahead and answer it, ask it anyway. So what happens if the supplier doesn't actually register? Are you still able to buy a product like the beanbag from a supplier that isn't actually connected to the network and doesn't register for the network?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, absolutely, you can complete the purchase. Now the payment might be outside the regular process, just like we did the one-time credit. So now in the case we showed in the demonstration, I showed one that was already registered on the network. They're most likely going to accept your network request. A brand new supplier, they may need a little more prodding in terms of understanding what is a network, what's the value of it, and that's really where we work in terms of supplier onboarding up front to as part of a project implementation to really sell them on the value of what they get from onboarding. Each of our customers will have a supplier landing page, which will really tout the benefits directly between that buyer and supplier in terms of why they're asking them to join the network, and really how they go about it and how they can do it electronically. So, yeah, we can help suppliers join, but there may be some resistance, but we'll work through that with the suppliers. And really also note the high volume suppliers will also, and these are typically around 100 or so, and it could be more, could be less, depending on your supply base, but we're going to work with them in a white glove type environment, direct contact with them, really to help them get directly connected to their financial system. So they're not logging onto a portal, but instead they're sending, they're receiving documents, receiving POs, and sending invoices directly from their ERP system.
Mm-hmm. A question here regarding security. So if you could provide a comment on information security, how is the information processed and stored and protected?
Yeah, so yeah, good question. We hit this a lot with our customers as we go through the process. So our data is all stored on Amazon Web Services. It can be sharded regionally, so Europe can store all their information in Ireland. In terms of security, we've gone through a number of different security protocols in terms of the SOC 1 and SOC 2, ISO certification. We're in the process of getting PCI compliance, so we feel that's important, whereas I think a lot of P2P players have overlooked that, saying we're not storing credit card information, but we feel that's key to enabling payments in the future. So PCI compliance will be happening within the next few months. Did that hit the security piece? Yeah.
I believe so, and if there are any follow-up questions, then that viewer can certainly post them. Regarding regions, so Tradeshift is a global solution. What are the kind of the regions where you would say that you have a particular kind of strength within?
Yeah, so we are global. Just to give a little background, I didn't tout who Tradeshift is, but we started in Copenhagen. Our founders digitized invoicing for the government of Denmark, which was sort of a starting point to say, okay, we should take this on a broader scale. But we started out, the company was based in Europe. We moved to San Francisco about 3 or 4 years ago, or moved headquarters, but we still have a significant presence in Copenhagen and throughout Europe, as well as the US. And the other region where we've got a pretty strong hold is China, and we're doing some interesting things there that you'll probably see in the press in the short term, or in the near future, I should say, around things we're doing in China, and really have the opportunity to be, or will be, one of the few trading partners that's approved, one of two that's approved for e-invoicing in China through a joint venture. So we're pretty excited about that.
Okay, good. And also, again, follow up on the supplier concentration, specifically focusing on Asia, actually. So maybe you can just build on the previous response that you just provided there, Mark. What is the supplier concentration with respect to to Asia?
Yeah, so Asia is probably our newest market in terms of supplier concentration. We are probably heaviest right now in Europe, just having started there, and moved to U.S. about 3 years ago, and really just started end of last year getting traction in China, and we'll be building that out throughout other regions of Asia. But yeah, I don't have specific numbers on the supplier count per region, but I would say it's going to be slightly heavier in the regions where we've been around the longest, which really, again, started in Europe and moved to U.S. and then moved to Asia Pacific.
Okay, good. Let's have a look at other questions more around customization. So this particular viewer is asking to what degree is customization possible, and is it possible to also white label the platform?
Yeah, so interesting question. So customization, we are a single code line, and we are a true multi-tenant environment. So I know some of the players out there are not, and that creates problems when they start maintaining multiple code lines, and support is not necessarily focused on the same thing, and resources are focused on support rather than building in new content. So what we do in terms of customizations, there is some flexibility to configure the system. So in other words, simple example, if you need we call it a custom field, but it's really a configuration. But if they need a new field, the example I had I talked about in a invoice is a person reference. We can add that. The workflow is completely configurable. So what we like to do from a customization is we like to find out if there's something that's going to add value for our customer base as a whole, and build those things into the product. And it is a single code line, so we maybe have a little less flexibility than others, but we think in the long run it's going to deliver a whole lot more value to our customer base. Now, in terms of white label, we can work with that. I'm not sure if the context of that, but we are working with a number of BPO providers, and if the context is somewhat in that regard, we can work with BPO providers to to use our solution in context with their supply base or with their customer base. So there is some capabilities there, and perhaps put some branding on it that references who the BPO provider is. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then from I suppose just I don't know where the view is from, and if the viewer actually does represent a BPO, but maybe just from a buyer's perspective, would they badge the technology when a supplier logs in? Could there be the badging provided by the customer, maybe in addition to the Tradeshift branding?
Yeah, so each customers could have their logos within their system and show, make it look and feel like it came from, my demo instance, it came from LTech. So that's all part of the process, and they would certainly see it's going to be the Tradeshift platform, but they would see on the transactions where the transaction actually came from. So the LTech transaction basically I was logged in as a supplier, and the buyer, I think I have it up still here, but the buyer actually sees that the purchase order came from LTech, and you can see that there's collaboration between Fluffy Puffs and LTech. So there is some branding to show who it came from, but recognize we are a network approach, and from a network perspective, they want to see all transactions in one place.
Great. We are out of time. There were a couple more questions, but I know that Mark can liaise with you directly if there wasn't time to have your specific question answered today. just please do make a note of the follow-up webinars that we've got. So if you're interested in robotics and RPA, join us on February 26th. And we've got a number of other great webinars taking place in March that should really be in your diary as well. And we have 3 very strong events out in the market. One on dynamic discounting and supply chain financing, and that's taking place in Scottsdale in February. Our Shared Services Leaders Summit taking place in London in March, and our North American Global Process Owner Summit taking place in Seattle in May. They do sell out, so do register nice and early. Thank you very much to Mark for giving us such a comprehensive overview, and thank you very much for your time and attention today. We look forward to welcoming you next time. Thank you and goodbye.